Okay, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to join you guys, even through Zoom. Let's just start in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. The topic that we have named is Weaving Trinity in Community. Is my voice good? And just want to make sure. Okay, I guess so. So weaving Trinity in community, and I figured let me start with a visual too of weaving. And in a weaving, oops, what? Okay, I have to go here. No, it's not moving. Oh, now it did. Okay. In a weaving, the basic weave has two directions, right? A vertical and a horizontal. I remember making my one in art class, and it was, going vertical, and then we would put the yarn, it would be horizontal. Now, those two, what shape do they make when they intersect? You guys can say it, or you get they make a cross, right? Yep, very good, Christina. They make a cross. And that's really critically important, because I know my sister's an iconographer, and everything is done in the cross, even all the painting. And in our bodies, there's lots of things that are in the shape of the cross. So it's a really important section there. Okay. So one of the greatest commandment also is in a cross. And when I do some of my Gloricize seminars, and my mom, who's got Parkinson's, I've taught her the only exercise she does, she only knew how to do prayer. And if you could see me, to love God, right, with your hands up, and you guys could do it if you want to stretch a little bit too, love God, and then to love neighbor, going vertical and then horizontal. So love God, and then love neighbor. And usually what I have is on the third time that we do this, we love God and we love neighbor, but we all connect our arms and make like a big circle with our arms. So those of you who are there in person, you could do that and connect to the people there. I'm a very kinesthetic type of teacher, so it's hard doing things on Zoom. But it's the greatest commandment to love God and to love our neighbor. So now, the Holy Trinity, which is God, is an icon of community of love. And I love that new word that I've learned a while ago, but perichoresis, which is a Greek word that literally means circle dance, used to explain how the three in one relate. And that's really important when you're looking at relationships. And we all know in the icon here that the Trinity, that it's a wonderful circle. And if you hear different explanations of it, how they work together. But not only in that direction, but in every possible way, it's a circle dance. And I love Metropolitan Anthony Bloom's when he quoted that Saint Isaac of Syria, he says that the eternal occupation of the angels is the dance. When we think of dance, he says, you know what we think of. How could the dance be an eternal occupation? And in another passage, he explains that the dance is rooted in such deep silence that it cannot find expression otherwise than in itself, but also that this silence can be expressed by motion, by harmony, by the beauty of motion without any interrupting noise, and any interrupting thought, any interrupting words. And in another seminar I had offered, when we were talking about motion, one of the Panis, priest's wife, had said in her parish, there was a young girl, and she turned around to her mom during the service and said, Mommy, when are we going to start dancing in church? And her mother says, we don't dance in church. And she says, but why are the angels dancing? So I think sometimes we need to see the realities that we start not seeing because of the life that we have. So the Holy Trinity moves together as one. And I liked this weave because, again, it's still vertical and horizontal, but it's a little bit more on the motion side of moving in a circle. So perichoresis is a liturgical dance in our everyday experiences. How do we see that each and every moment of the day? It's being and moving in the Trinity's continuous creation, that it's continuing, something new is happening. The divine circle dance moves harmoniously and seamlessly, the three in one. Perichoresis, or mutual indwelling, the uniting of one ousia with the three hypostases without confusion, blending, mingling, composition, change, or division of substance. And just so we could see that it's such a word that describes much more than what we've been experiencing. So we participate in the Holy Trinity's perichoresis, and as Saint Irenaeus says, God, when we participate, is harmonizing us to the symphony of salvation. So one of my favorite passages in the Bible is, "It is more blessed to give than to receive." But someone had made me a little tiny embroidery, and it said, "Living is giving." And when I shared that with a bunch of young kids with their mothers, my goddaughter, who was then about 10, said, Mommy, she goes, "Is the opposite true? Is getting dying?" And I thought, wow, that is pretty profound. And then I started thinking, wow, the things that we accumulate, and so many things, sometimes it does kill us. It kills our time, it kills our thoughts, when we have so much stuff that's not always necessary. But every day we need to find ways to give, because then we live. So how do we do that? So the act of giving is a liturgical dance, or perichoresis. It's a movement or a dance, or I call movement a poetic movement, as I define dance. Like we do the Psalms, they're poetic, but this is a poetic movement, is the dance of love, of agape. So giving, as Aguilera says in his book, Money and Salvation, is an opportunity, not an obligation. Too many times we have set it up as, we have to do this, we have to do that. And it's not that at all. It's an opportunity. And what's the opportunity? To thank God, to show gratitude and Eucharistia, to be like God, humble and eternally and unconditionally loving, to grow our relationship with God and others through giving. We transform our image from image to the actual likeness of God. So giving mercy, because God is merciful. So the more mercy we give, what do we say more often than anything else in all our services is, "Lord, have mercy." And what I think it reminds us is that we need to have mercy on everyone else around us as well. So, and then all the secular data on gratitude also brings out that in gratitude, out of all the other emotions, it evolves more than just the one person. So expressing gratitude for acts of kindness that other people do towards us is essential for nurturing healthy relationships. And I like how Laris points out that conversely, failing to concretely express gratitude often causes severe relational damage. Okay, so if we don't offer the bread and the wine, there can't be that relationship. And then that's a liturgical level, but that happens on a daily level with all the human beings that are with us. So in sociology, they say that the generosity is a paradoxical. Those who give receive back in return, but they receive something much more than stuff. So encountering or dancing with God through holy hospitality is one of the focuses I'd like to take, because I have some really kind of cute examples, not cute, but some of them really neat. So concrete giving. So when it says for us to give, the passage in Matthew, to give to, so generously give food, shelter, love, protection, money to strangers or angels that God sends our way. Hospitality, the Greek word is philoxenia, the friend of the stranger. And we know from antiquity that it was a very important for people to be hospitable to whoever showed up. And it was kind of a sin if you weren't. And they said that, these are angels in disguise. that they come and God sends them. So I always love that because, we live in a society that says, don't talk to strangers, don't be with strangers. But I think we need to visit what is a stranger or not. And everything is God's. It's really not ours to begin with. And each human being is God's. And, I keep saying to everyone, everything's about relationships. And eternity is so that we can meet every single human being that God ever created. And we create that relationship. It's beyond just our family. It's beyond all that at a macro level, and start creating those relationships so no one will be a stranger. So all of this sounds like giving hospitality. So here's an example. This is a children's book I wrote years ago. And I love this one because it was a bishop that visited us from Crete. And he said this, and I inserted it in the book. The dinner table is like the altar table. It is holy, says the bishop. And the Holy Trinity joins us while we are at the holy table. So you're right, dinner is a wonderful time because the whole family is together around the table. Father begins with prayer, asking God to bless our food and drink, thanking Jesus and inviting him to join us. And I think that inviting him to join us is very key. So each mealtime, every time we have a meal, is an opportunity for the Holy Trinity to be dancing and praying with us as community, in and outside of us. It's the perichoresis of the Holy Trinity. And I know there was a study at Columbia years ago, and it was funny, for families that eat together, their children have less problems. They will probably not be on drugs and all that stuff. So the company my husband was working for had everyone submit a picture of them eating with their family. Meanwhile, we did that all the time anyway, but we ended up winning. So we got $400 to go spend. We're like, let's go to New York to go have dinner together somewhere out. So it's a really incredible time. So there's two areas I want to talk about: weaving community, where we live daily. And one of them is in, and the other one is out. One of them is private, the other one is public. So inviting God and neighbors into the heart of our home. So going to where our temple is, in our heart, where God lives, but also in our home, in our privacy. And the second one is giving and sharing our home of the heart, the Holy Trinity's perichoresis, with others wherever they gather in the public. So then how do we do this? So one of the examples of inviting strangers and neighbors and everyone to the heart of our home is actually having people come over our homes. And hospitality, I've learned this from my parents who always did this, and then we continue to try to do what they've taught us. Hospitality is sacrificial love. It's an offering. That's what Christ did on the cross. He gave, or he sacrificed, his body and blood for us to partake. Why? To regenerate our body and blood so that we can become new creations. So open door policy at our homes, within our family, within our parish. A small smile or a word or a meal that we share together, or a campfire, if we don't want to do foods, but also community celebrations, inviting people to our homes. One of the big holidays, feast days that we do, and it's our favorite, is Pascha. We invite everyone that we know from all over. And my parents did, when they came as immigrants to America, my father did the lamb on the spit every year. And meanwhile, he was a priest. So it was very Old Testament. Rabbi, he would go to the farms, get the lambs. But we would invite everyone. And then we continued to do that. And I invited my college students. We invited coworkers, all our neighbors, friends. And then they also brought other people. And what was so nice is that we always, of course, do our values as an opportunity to share them. So one of the traditions that we've started is saying Christ is risen in as many languages of the people that come. And it is such a favorite of everyone. Meanwhile, we make a huge circle out on our lawn if the weather's good, and that's where we share it. And after everyone shares it in their language, we all repeat it. So it's an awesome way of celebrating. New Year's Day, it's my name day, Vasiliki, St. Basil. So we do the cake with a coin in it. Again, we have some of the traditions of the that we sing kalanda carols for New Year's Day, and we do our prayers all together. We thank God, and we share our home and our values through the way we express them. And usually we like to make our own food, and others bring some things too, and we offer as much as we can. And it's so wonderful to see everyone participating. And on name days, feast days, birthdays. So I'm going to show you examples of some of these, let's see if it goes, birthdays. So I started thinking as an educator with my children, I started seeing birthday parties for kids. And I was thinking, oh my, I'm going to die if my daughter comes home with 20 Barbie dolls. I just, what for? Why? And I didn't like that it was just the kids as they were going. So we decided to question, why are we having a party? Why are we celebrating? And why gifts, and what do they teach? And how do we model the learning we value? And my daughter's first birthday party was in April. It was during Lent. So we decided to introduce everyone to the monastery that opened up in Pennsylvania. And that's where we had her birthday party. So for many people, it was their first time coming to a monastery. So again, using these opportunities, but most of the time we would do things at home. And this is where I will show on our invitations, it always said, your family is invited, not just the one person. Your presence is your present. Just being here is the present you're giving us. And that the greatest gift is giving to others for a purpose beyond self. So we always tried to, like when we had at the monastery, we had everyone give whatever donation they wanted to the monastery. But then this is the ones, we did two big ones when they were 7. So the 2 party ideas that I'm just going to share a little bit about is my daughter was 17 months older than my son. We did a big fat Greek birthday party, Glendy, for her. After the movie came out, it was that season. So since we know how to do a lamb on the spit, we knew, all that stuff, we decided. So the theme was Greek. So be Greek for a day. And she requested that if they have ethnic costumes, they could wear them, or they could wear blue and white. It was just kind of a fun thing to do all together. And then for our son, a year and a half later, we ended up doing a Trojan horse birthday party at our home. So meanwhile, I'm an educator. So everything is like, okay, what can we do? How can we learn? What are we going to learn from doing this? There goes my energy. So here's just a few little slides. Here's her big fat Greek birthday, Glendy. We did have the bundt cake, as you can see here, on top of another cake, because we had to feed. Both of them had over 100 people at our house. Neighbors from church, from like all different ages. Here's the lamb on the spit. And there we are with the lamb on the front, some of the people that were here. And then the Trojan horse, and we're really big recycle people. So at our old home, they had this panel that we didn't like. So we took it off, but we didn't want to throw it away. So we created a Trojan horse, a 9-foot Trojan horse on our wagon. See the kids inside the horse as we're reenacting. And then here, my husband's playing Homer, and we recited the first paragraph. So that we had camps that the children made their shields with. They designed them. We had everyone bring any kind of ancient Greek food they could think of. So it was an opportunity to allow other people to also use their creative juices. I mean, people still speak about this, and this is almost 15 years later, about that wonderful experience they had. So it was at our home. The driveway became the Aegean Sea. And Greece was on one side, Troy was on the other. And here you have all the kids making the shields, so they're getting ready for battle. And it's wonderful because culturally, all right, there's Greeks, there's Egyptians, there's Vietnamese, and there's Syrian kids right there in that little section there. And then we made these little floats that we would use at the Greek parade. So here's an ancient Greek ship on a thing. So we took each of the kids to the other side. So it was a fun activity there. And then we have Achilles. The kid who played Achilles was awesome. The kids are so theatrical, and we saw a video of it. It's a short 20-minute video, cartoon and thing. So they got the story in that way. They're 7 years old. My husband first said, oh, let's get them swords. I said, no, not 7-year-olds, shields, round, no corners. Okay, here we go. come on. Okay, so then we took that from home and we had everyone donate to, when I went to the library and they had all the different languages, they didn't have Greek. So I said, oh, can we add Greek books and DVDs and CDs? We got the whole line of Greek mythology for videos. So they're all at the library now. And then we did a kind of another program at the library, open to the public. And we invited some of the politicians that represent us, the library's administration, and all the children that were at the library. And of course, we did hospitality. We offered them some type of refreshments. We also did a little, you see the two with the flags, we also did like a little ceremony coming in. So it was very, very interactive in that way. And then we had so many books donated, over 500, I think we were over books, DVDs, CD-ROMs that were all donated to the library. And here's some of them. So then when my father and mother were retired, my dad was 80, they don't need any stuff. So we decided, thinking, what a great opportunity, my father as a priest, for people to bring books and DVD things to the library, or they can give to a fund in which I purchase things. So of course, I took this as an opportunity and I purchased all the early church fathers books from St. Vladimir series. They're now at the public library. And I know Elena Silk was having problems getting him in her local library in Yonkers near St. Vladimir's. So she said, how did you do that? I said, I asked. I started that relationship with the kids and then now brought it to adults. So they have Orthodox study Bibles. They've got other books there present. So it was neat because it was then highlighted at the library. Here's my two kids when they were younger. For 2 months, they highlighted. And then all the coffee tables in the lobby, they put actual church father books so that people can just kind of be introduced to them. One of the neat things is somebody called our local Greek Orthodox church here and said, who donated these? These are great. I'm writing my dissertation and I found the book I was looking for at a public library they was researching. So they created what was called the Greek collection. And then we added, all these things that are now available by interlibrary loan at every public library in the United States. So again, enriching people because you don't know who will be encounter a book that they might just stumble on and what that will do to them. So now how do we bring hospitality to the public space instead of just our home? It's easier to do at home. I have more, say, but how do we give the home of our heart to others? So where do people gather? And what can we offer? So as my children were young, I ended up teaching at 2 universities, but on Saturday or in the evenings later on, the other one. And Saturday, of course, this Catholic university I was at doesn't have any food or refreshment. We're there for 5 hours. So I ended up deciding to bring my coffee and tea every week in a big thermos. And it really cost the same amount as each of them buying their own at Dunkin' Donuts or anywhere else. So we kind of then used this opportunity to teach. Plus then I had them all bring their own mugs that are more ecologically responsible. So it was all these opportunities of teaching. And then as I saw years go by, less and less of them were doing it. So then I decided, let me put some credit on it. So they get extra credit when they do bring it and they don't get any credit when they don't bring it something. So that was the first time. Plus also the way I teach is with all our senses, just like the church. So smell, taste. Smell is the #1 memory reactor. So I'm like, and I was training teachers. So I said, if we know that smell is the #1 memory reactor, why aren't we practicing using it so we can bring back memories so that we can connect it to our learning? So that was some of the things there. Then from that, I had my thermoses, I had everything. My children started doing sports. And then I saw everyone coming to the sports field with their chair, their coffee, watching their child. And I'm like, I can't do this. So I found a table that opens up, it looks like a suitcase, and it opens up and 4 people can sit. There's benches on it, and you can even put an umbrella. And I would bring coffee and cookies or whatever, or depends if it was lemonade, if it was really hot, and share it with everyone. The first day I did this, one lady comes with $1 to give me. I said, no. I said, we don't have time to go to each other's homes anymore for hospitality. So I'm bringing the hospitality where we gather, on the field. And then later on, one of my Protestant friends goes, now I know what you were doing and why. She just sharing that hospitality. And then even with our, soccer field, cross country, I would do the same thing, Olympics. And then I would also kind of culturally, sometimes I would bring baba ganoush. And they're like, what the heck is baba? Those who didn't know. So it's always like teaching opportunities with the portable hospitality. Oops. Then I ended up also doing something at a farmer's market last year. And I found, as I just had some healthy, 3B healthy was my little thing, but this year I had to take some time off because I had a little surgery that I had to fix. But I found that it was a wonderful opportunity to share with people that are coming up and speaking to you. So of course, then I started bringing plants, I started bringing icons, I started bringing books. And I only bring a few books, like my book, I started off with that one. And then I started adding a few more so that they're there. And then it gives us conversation pieces to do. So, and then the bazaars, festivals, it's being where people are. I'm not going, preaching to them, but they're there and it's an opportunity to speak, especially if there's something on your area that they would be interested in finding out more. So life is very empty when the only one we think of or care about or serve is ourselves. And this is today's society, so much so. And, a lot of people have stopped giving hospitality, even if it's for one person. We need to know that it's when we offer something like Trinity does with us all the time, liturgically in a different way. So life lived in the context and understanding of serving, of giving to others, no matter how ungrateful they could be, is much richer, deeper, and real, because it enters the community of love as agape or perichoresis. We enter the circle dance with the Holy Trinity when we start to give. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, with all your mind. I love how it says mind and not brain from the previous discussion, our whole being, and love your neighbor as yourself. So again, it's, prayer. And the reason with the whole cross, I used to do these retreats on prayer and service with Mary and Martha. And that's how the whole thing came up with loving God and loving neighbor. Prayer and service, they're woven together. And as Elder Emiliano says, prayer is our inclusion in the life of God, our perichoresis in God. And so is giving. And so is any other. So offering to others as to God really makes us a little more like God. And sometimes we think we can't, but God will, if we want to do it, he'll find some way for us to do it. So let us weave Trinity in community right now. And I know they said to do discussion, so I really want to go more into discussion. I just gave you some examples. I am filled with examples. And I want to learn other examples that some of you might have that also might help us. How do we give? How do we weave community? And if you see the word community here, I have unity all capitalized. And then the I have even larger. So we don't lose the I. We really become the I in the context of community. And I think we especially today, before we didn't have entertainment or enterslavement, as I call it, where we'd go to, we ended up being together more often. We would go to each other's homes. We would learn what was going on from each other. And I think some of that is lost, but needs to come back at a real tangible way. So let us weave Trinity in community now. And then I have some references there on the other thing, but I'm going to go back to this one, and those are some of the references. Can I open for discussion? Is that okay?
Yes, of course. First of all, thank you, Vasiliki, for your presentation. You can hear the applause of those present here. You could stop sharing now so that we can see all the people on the screen.
Yeah, let me see. Let me get my son because okay, stop share. There it is. Oh, does it let me go up there? Okay. Let me see. Manoli? Manoli? Manoli.
Oh,
I can get the arrow up. Oh no, I got it up now. Okay, came out through the side. Stop share. Okay, there we go.
gallery view, maybe just to see the other participants.
Yes.
So thank you, Vasiliki, for so wisely bringing into conversation Trinitarian paradigm into our lives, how we can apply this in our everyday lives, and for the emphasis you placed on education. I'm sure there are questions, and we have time for that. So who wishes to start? Either someone in here or perhaps someone online.
Or even examples, if some of you have other examples that you can add that you've experienced, because I think that enriches each of us.
Hi, one of your comments caught my attention about having gratitude, otherwise our relationships break down.
Yes.
Remember that was at the beginning of your talk. And
yes.
And yes, I think that's important. I just want to ask you a little bit, what about in situations where it's very hard to do that because someone, your loved one, has hurt you? What does one do in that case to to not allow that relationship to break down? Many times it does.
Yeah, that is a very, we have to then sometimes know when to go away so we could heal and see better, but we have to then turn our prayer on big time to pray for that person. Because we can't get sicker because of us thinking about the hurt that we have. And that will make us sick if we don't let it go. So we have to then turn that energy that into a true, Lord, help that person. Lord, please help that person. They don't see, of how they hurt us. The funny thing is, when we have these open houses, I have this one, and I'm not going to name any names, this one person that comes from one of our churches. I attend a lot of churches in the area, even though I grew up in the church that's near here because my parents started it 60 years ago. He is, what do you call it, using the system in a sense, very poor, whatever not. And now we just realized, because my husband's been helping him a lot, he'd been coming to any party he knew we had. He'd show up at the local train station and say, come get me, so that he can get free food. He has been always going to restaurants that would feed him. So he really knows how to use people. And now it kind of got confirmed because he's going to be moving back to Greece because he's going to die at some point soon. And he has all this cash, like, in your beds and stuff like that, that he, it's unbelievable. So for me, it bothers me when people are ungrateful to that degree. But, we still had him come. We still help him. Even though I definitely keep a little more distance. My husband is a little bit better of not getting as emotionally charged to that. So like I said, we have to still try to show some generosity. We have to be as Christ-like, which is sometimes really hard. But again, it depends what kind of damage they've done to us. If they're continuing to damage us, then we can't be in that relationship. At least not at that time. Did that help at all, Sherry?
Yes, thank you, Vasiliki. There's a question from Sherry, who's online. Go ahead, Sherry.
Thank you very much for sorts of very interesting suggestions and so on for your talk. I think I would bring in some ways quite a different perspective to this due to a very sort of different context. One of the things that tends to be very difficult about this sort of thing in Christianity is when you are the one who has, by circumstances, to be on the receiving end most of the time. Now, I am not in good health, and I am actually sort of quite disabled, even without the poor health. And there is very, very few of my relationships am I able to do anything like the amount for the people with whom I stand in relationship, as they are doing for me. And that is just an inherent fact of my life, and it greatly limits the relationships I have, because things like the church communities do very, very much rely on an equal interchange, at least at some stage in people's lives. So I think one ends up with a sort of theory of gratitude and giving that comes from the other direction, as the one who has been appointed to receive, trying to meet the sort of thing you're talking about. And it does get, I think there's sort of quite a lot of interesting room for discussion there, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah. But what happens is we're not trained to see that when we're helping someone else or giving something to someone else, it really helps us. It helps us see ourselves much deeper and for real than what the society is seeing us as. And so the receiving, you're still giving, even though you're receiving. You're thanking them. You are acknowledging that they exist and that they mean something to you and that you're grateful for their assistance. So then the gratefulness is also on your side, which then also helps you as well, in that relationship. But it's really hard because sometimes we say that we're Orthodox, and that's, I keep saying my thing with movement, because I'm also, I'm doing some research on movement in our church. We're like statues in church. We don't budge. And I remember going to some of these awesome clergy ladies. And when the doxology was on, it sounded like it was alive. The 300 people choir, singing. It was like your whole soul was lifted in the joy. And then I go to some churches and they all forget to put the bells on, or they forget to do this. So now in my purse, I have a tiny little bell. So when people don't ring the bells or don't do the chandeliers and have some type of movement, I take my little bell out and I start ringing it. And my body, I go side to side like a bell. I become the bell, so that I could express the joy that I feel saying, thank you, God, in some way.
What if they were deliberately not ringing the bell?
Yeah, they forget, or
Okay.
sometimes some people micromanage and they only one person will do it, and they forget because they're doing other things. So it's just, but that joy has to be there, and that movement. My daughter had said too. She's in Finland right now, and the patriarch had just gone, and it's their 100-year anniversary. And she says it was something very unfinished, but it was really nice that they had afterwards a luncheon for everybody, which is something that they usually don't do. But that hospitality is critical. And I know we were on an island in Greece, Nisero, for the Virgin Mary's feast in the summer. The night for Vespers, they fed everyone a Lenten food afterwards. And then they had music and entertainment for free. And then after the liturgy, they fed everyone again. On the whole island, thousands of people came with boats from other islands. And I'm like, wow, this is the hospitality that I have heard of, but then I also saw it. It's not prevalent today, because now when you go to some of these feast days, they have all these vendors selling food instead of giving food. But then people end up giving when they are filled with joy and they are getting filled. And somehow God doesn't live always in us and in our churches. And we have to try to really work hard in bringing him back, first in us and then in our communities, because it's Christ's body. Why isn't he there? He's there. We just need to see him.
Thank you very much for this. Any other questions or comments? Things you'd like to share with the rest of us? Aidan?
That's a little anecdote. My name is Aidan Hart. About 3 weeks ago, an 11-year-old girl in our church who has started her art career quite early. She's actually selling some of her paintings on eBay. She came up to me very excited and she said, "Can I tell you my business plan?" I said, "Well, that's great. Do. Well, I'm going to give all my money to the church that I make from selling my paintings." But that was really lovely. And then last Sunday, the priest after the liturgy came out and he said, we have so many people coming to church now, we need a bigger chalice. And his father, who's the main priest, had just come back from Athens and he'd bought a larger chalice and a pattern. And he bought them out and he said, this is bought with the money that you gave to the church from a 11-year-old girl. That's really moving. Put us to shame.
Yeah. You know, we live in a society where we're not learning to give. And that's why I really enjoy this. It's a newer book. It's 2023, Money and Salvation from St. Vladimir's Press. And it talks about the whole burnt offering, which started with Cain and Abel and then on. So it was before the law. And then, of course, the one that we know the most is with, what's his name? Abraham and Isaac, when he was being offered. And then it's a foreshadowing of Christ giving his own body and blood, being the lamb. And we really don't give just to give. You know, the whole burnt offering, they burnt up. Nobody ate of it. Nobody participated. It was just given to God, the complete trust. And he gives the analogy that, you know, today that would be like, you know, everyone giving money to the church and then taking the money and putting it on fire. You know, we're like, oh, we could use it for this or we could use it for that, not thinking that we're speaking like Judas, you know, and trusting that God might do something beyond what we might think he would.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments, anecdotes from our online friends or the ones? Oh, Elizabeth.
How do I, sorry, to show how to move into camera shot and wave. Sure. I can't see myself anyway.
I can see you, Elizabeth.
Good. Yes. No. I've just come back from Romania this afternoon, so I've been enjoying Romanian hospitality, and I will catch up later and no doubt hear what you've been talking about. But very glad that you've been able to be here, even if it's only virtually.
Yes. Wait, Elizabeth, can you share, because you've been participating in the both the Pascha celebrations at my house and the New Year's Day parties. Just the, you know, what about them that we've shared? I mean, I know you brought your friends from England. You've become friends with some of our neighbors, and those beautiful connections that happen.
Yes, I mean that really. Sorry, I don't know if you've talked about that since I've only just got in.
Yeah.
But no, I mean that is an extraordinary example of what one can do at home. Simply, you know, have open house, invite everyone. Everyone feels welcome. You know, there's no pressure, but people are participating in the joy of the feast. And yeah, it's a wonderful atmosphere. It's a wonderful way for people to connect. And I know, I mean, I think at least two visitors of ours from England came along, no, three, on various occasions, and very much appreciated it.
I'll add to that too, how God really works. I mean, people have connected networking wise with, I mean, we have the poorest of the poor here. We have deans of universities come. It's the whole microcosm. People have found jobs, have connected and made friendships, totally unexpected. And I will even add, this past year, we had a New Year's Day party, and lots of people. One of my daughter's friends brought three of her friends, and one of them brought her mother, who has Alzheimer's. And to see her interacting with the infants that were here, interacting with the young adults, and then they started dancing. They started doing Arabic dances. They started doing Greek dances. So this woman who didn't know any of these was joining the circle dances. And it got so big and hot that we had to move outside. And it was so nice. And I said, wow, what we do in this culture is we lock everybody up with everybody else that's like them. And we don't have these public spaces where we can actually just be, who we are and be loved and accepted and just be in the presence of a community. And I think that's really important. And even Sherry, when you're saying sometimes it's just, face to face, whatever opportunities God gives us to be with people is a gift, is a very big gift. So.
Oh, sorry.
Part of the trouble we have is that you tend to end up dealing with real crashes of need when you have people with certain types of disabilities. So I have noise sensitivity problems. And though I can work with children and do, I find it very difficult to be around children who are doing something else because I get random noises and that just causes a lot of trouble. So while I think it's very well worth putting the effort into it, it's necessary to realize that sometimes you will need the effort to sort of make sure there's a bit of a space where someone can get away a little bit from noise if that's a problem for them, for example.
Yes.
And similarly, to make sure the children can make a noise and are not just being told to sit down and shut up.
Oh.
Because I so sympathize with children in that position. It's like, oh. And one of the things I think one does learn is the need for immense mutual investment between people with different practical needs, in the sense that it's very important, if I'm sort of part of a church, that I should be very invested in the children and vice versa, because we have different immediate needs when we're actually like sitting in the space. And it's important that we have a mutual trust that we both care about having the other person there, and in that situation you can work around it. When both sides expect the other one to just say to the other side, get lost, you can't work around it.
Yeah. Well, I remember Mother Cristoforo had said, sometimes it's the adults who make more noise than the kids in church by telling them to be quiet, be quiet, be quiet.
I'd agree with that. Yeah,
it's just unbelievable. Yeah. She also gave an awesome example. Mother Christopher gave an awesome example of community. She says, we're all like rough rocks. And, if we put ourselves in a rock tumbler in community, by hitting upon each other, we kind of start smoothing our sides, our rough parts. And that's letting our egos kind of, and learning how to work together so that we can all become smooth, beautiful gems or rocks in that community. So it is a process, and it is not easy, but we can't give up, and we have to keep trying and keep communicating.
Vasiliki, thank you very much for joining us from a distance, and particularly as you communicate what you do, it's clear that you, in order to get the circle dance going, someone, when things slow down, needs to take an initiative and to face an awkwardness. I think post-pandemic, when the momentum of the circle has slowed down, we've been looking for ways to try to get things going again. Have you, within your circles, found that post-pandemic that you have a way of trying to get the magic going again, to get people re-engaged?
It's, I had young adults during this COVID time. So I knew it was important for them to continue to be with people. So then we did campfires at our home. And the first time, everyone brought their own chair, brought their own, just so we could be safe, but they needed to be together. And then we started, I'm like, you guys are getting together. I want to see their parents. We'll do it outside, and finding, even in that time, we have to we can, in our homes, but also outside in public, where can we start creating a little bit of community, or where can we share some hospitality of some sort, or some way to give to somebody else? Maybe a note, a letter will make somebody smile, that would lift someone. But it's, yes, in our communities, we need to have, fellowship hours. We need to have, but we also need sometimes some quiet time, but we also need to connect and not to be afraid. The other thing is sometimes it's overwhelming. I have gotten up to almost 250 people at my home for some of the graduation parties. That's a lot of people. And preparing all that is a lot of work. But and Elizabeth has helped me. We made spanakopita one day, the whole day. I mean, I think she was seeing it in her dreams. But then people started also bringing. So then it makes it so much easier when, you know, it's kind of potluck and everybody just brings something. And it allows us to see something else from someone else. So, and then I have, you know, I had this young guy this last time, I think it was Pascha. He says, you know, I've been coming to your house for all my life for Pascha. And he says, I need to wash the dishes this time because, you know, everyone just, you know, so he just decided that, you know, it's a nice thing to me to participate in a different way also. I never ask anyone. It's whatever is in their hearts that they can offer. But when they offer something, I definitely appreciate it. And I think that's it, is when people offer to appreciate.
Hello, thank you for your lovely talk. You talked about the virtuous circle of giving and receiving and giving more and the whole thing just getting bigger and better. But I have to say, I have many experiences when that doesn't really happen. Because in order to give and to have that virtuous circle, a person has to receive. And it seems to me the problem isn't so much in, you know, let's give more, let's give more. A lot of the problem today is learn how to receive. And I'm afraid I know people, a lot of people, and I know a whole church where I've said, you know, it's impossible to help this person. It's impossible to help this church. I can't give to them because they can't receive. And you think, well, why can't they receive? Why can't they receive? And I can think of it, well, because they're too prideful, or because they're too frightened, or because literally they're too tired. They're so busy wrapped up with doing everything, and we can't even get this circle to start. And then I was thinking about the person who asked about when you've been badly hurt by somebody else and you want to forgive them. And you're quite right. You do have to forgive. You must forgive, otherwise the hurt stays with you, and that's very damaging. But how can you forgive someone who hasn't asked for your forgiveness? How can you forgive someone who has in their lives done no wrong? There's nothing to forgive. You can't forgive them. And so it's like pressing the gift on them when it's unwanted. It becomes importunate. It becomes an imposition on them, and the virtual circle can't start. And on that situation, I think the only thing you can do then is to have compassion on yourself. You must then become onto yourself, but compassion on yourself to make sure that that lack of forgiveness doesn't turn into pain. And if I might just say very briefly, the third issue you said, I'm thinking of the woman and the two mites who gives trivial value to the church, but she's given much more than the people who give, you know, all of their wealth. Because she's given from her poverty, as you say. And again, I find it time and time again, what is the gift that, you know, you would like to receive from somebody? You'd like to receive the free gift of their attention, their time, their listening, the things that don't have any money. And in my experience, those things are just not there. They're just not given. And these are the things that cost nothing. And yet the ability to say, oh, I would like to rush home because I need to do something at home, but this lady wants to talk to me or something, so I'll just sit here with her until she's finished talking. It'll make me late home, but I will give her that 10 minutes. You know, that is the gift, the free gift that I think is the thing that is perhaps the thing we need to do.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And you said sometimes people don't have the ability to ask for forgiveness. And what we need to do so that we are not negatively affected is to forgive them anyway, and pray that someday God will turn their hearts. And I know I've been involved with communities for a very long time, and one of the problems we have is also slander. When they see something that's beautiful and they want to knock it down because it will, you know, they see themselves and maybe not Christ. It's really difficult. But we have to ask God what we should be doing at each of those moments. And if one church community is really poisonous for us, then thank God, you know, most of us have a lot of options. I mean, my new thing now has been I'm traveling to all the different jurisdictions and going and meeting. And I feel at home at each church I go to. I really feel at home. And I love the discussions during fellowship hour. Because sometimes if I'm in the same place too long, which I have been many times, I grew up in this area. Sometimes we see things fresher when we also see other things, other expressions. So it's a healing thing for us as well.
Thank you, Vasiliki. One last, hopefully short question from online participant Elena, who's raised the hand.
Yeah, thank you. I apologize for not switching on video. My computer camera is broken. Thank you very much, Vasiliki, for your wonderful talk. It's a comment, it's not a question. I'm sorry. It's a wonderful example of putting theology in practice. I mean, in living it. When we are talking about living our faith in life, mostly we think about pious exercises and charity work, or going to churches and putting icons around and teaching people the elements of faith. But you have taken a very difficult problem of transforming life according to the belief in a very difficult terms in living the Holy Trinity in life. And I think it's very difficult, and it's a beautiful example of it. And thank you also for mentioning that you feel at home at different denominations in different churches, and coming out of Russia, I feel very strongly about it, because we are after the period of atheism, we feel very xenophobic, terribly xenophobic, and it's definitely not a Christian way of life. These are basic principles, the perichoresis of love and acceptance, which you showed beautifully in practical, very well, simple in inverted commas way. And the questions which were posed about acceptance, receiving, and forgiving, they just show that it's not a simple way of living theology. Thank you very much for it.
It's living the cross. And you know, Elena, for some reason, when you were speaking, it came to my mind when I teach, now and I do psychology before I did other things. You know, when we learn how to ride a bike, in the beginning, our mind, when the learning is just happening, we use a lot of our brain, and all these things light up because we're learning how to do it. After we've learned how to ride a bike, our brain will not make those connections anymore because it's moved to muscle memory. And I think what we need to do is realize that any act of giving, any motion, any dance that we perform for the glory of God, to be in his dance, that will slowly but surely help us get into that dance. And I've even taught dance before, and some people do have those left feet and it's hard to try to get people to look like one group, but it's never impossible, and we have to keep trying. So that's where I'll end there with that.
Thank you, Vasiliki, for your wonderful presentation. And
Thank
for
you.
so beautifully engaging with the questions from the audience. It was a joy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much too. I enjoyed all of you.